I'm
Thank
so
you.
I'm so excited to have you on. I'm so
Oh,
excited. It's been almost 30 years since I've seen you in
my
person.
fuck, and I have my morning face.
Uh, I wanna I wanna tell people how I came to know about you because I think it's such a lovely, lovely thing. Um, when I was younger, I loved to read the different, magazines and stuff like that. And a lot of people, uh, I think, and it's kind of unfortunate. I think a lot of people um, have discredited Gavin in the past because of the way that he looks and discredit his music. But one of the things that was really great about him in different interviews was he would cite a lot of different bands that he loved, and
Yeah,
a lot of people don't do that, you know.
no.
But he always said, I love the Pixies, I love Steve Albini, I love Souls," and that was the first time I heard about Souls. And I thought, okay, well, I'm going to go down to the local record store and I'm going to go find this album. And I bought the album. And I remember I had my friend in the car who was a big metalhead and just, he would consider himself a music snob, right? And we put on the album and we heard the opening of it. And we were just like, oh, damn, this is good. This is so
So
good.
cute. Yeah.
And so I'm such an introvert. I don't like to go out in public. I'm afraid of crowds. But when you guys came to San Diego in support of Bush and Veruca Salt, I'm like, okay, this might be my only chance to go see them. And I said, and they're coming all the way from Sweden. I may never see them again. I want them to know I'm here for them. And I remember I told you that I wrote like on with red lipstick. I just wrote souls on my arms so that when I screamed, because this is before, cell phones and stuff, so that when I screamed and yelled, you guys would see my arms and know, hey, I'm there for you. Like everybody here is probably here for Gavin, but I'm here or Veruca Salt, right? I'm like, but I'm here for you. And I remember there was a point and I got up to the front and everything. And there was that moment of connectivity and you looked and you saw it and you smiled. And I was like, yes, I'm so happy.
Oh,
So
it's such a beautiful story. I'm almost tearing up. No, that meant a lot to us because no one knew who we were. So each night we really had to win, the audience
yeah,
on the little time we had,
yeah,
and that meant a lot to us when I saw that. When I saw that arm, and I was like,
yeah,
wow, someone actually knows who we are. I
yeah,
mean, we were doing meet and greets, and since Gavin was so helpful and so amazing, and he really wanted to lift us up, he gave us all the opportunities. And in the meet and greet, they put the table so that the fans, they needed to pass through our table before they came to Gavin.
yeah,
So when they came up to our little table, we had like posters and stuff that we were signing, and then everyone was they were just standing like this. Gavin is there, right? And
yeah.
they were like just looking at Gavin. And then when they had the sign, the autograph, they just like threw it on the floor when they came up to
My
Gavin.
God.
So it was a lot like that.
Yeah,
But it was a weird thing for us because in Sweden we were not an arena band,
yeah,
so
yeah,
we were doing like medium-sized clubs. That was
yeah,
kind of our audience by then. And then suddenly we do this like Spinal Tap experience
yeah,
when on these huge arenas. So it was really cool, but also really hard.
yeah.
Yeah, yeah.
I thought it was great and I don't know how much. of it at the time, he was able to choose what bands to go on there. But I think that he must have had some because he had Jesus Lizard on,
Yeah.
you know.
No, it was amazing because the whole reason why we were there is that since he had just recorded with Steve Albini, and since we'd worked with him for 2 albums by then, and the first album we recorded with Steve Albini came to Växjö, a small town in Sweden, and we were at the countryside in this industrial place where there was this old studio. And the reason that we were in that studio was because Steve thought that the owner, he was also very interested in Russian microphones. You know, this
Wow,
nerd.
yeah.
And it was an old like dance band country studio.
Yeah.
And it ended up that Steve Albini totally rebuilt the whole thing, because in the studio it was so sound isolated, so we couldn't really play because we were just used to be in basements, you know, with concrete walls. So but then on by the side was this huge garage. So he put me and the drummer there, and then he ordered a multi-cable. So we recorded it. So me and the drummer were in another house building, while Andreas and Johan were in the studio.
Mhm.
And then he put out microphones in the whole studio. So all the effects are from this huge garage room.
Yeah.
And when Gavin wanted to record with Steve, he always sent this album as a sample, because he really liked it, to show Gavin how he works, kind of.
Yeah.
So that's when he found us, and then eventually Gavin he got his own little label on
Mad Dog Winston Records.
Yes, so he was the one signing us to his little label, and then because I forgot what was it called, the record company.
Interscope?
Yeah, Interscope. Yeah, Trauma Interscope, and these 2 guys that were running it, they were not really interested in us. But since Gavin, it was all because of Gavin,
Yeah.
of course. No,
Yeah.
so he really fought for us, and yeah, I really want to credit him as well. It's very humble, really nice guy. So I
Yeah.
agree with you, but for us, I mean, in the beginning, we were not huge Bush fans, maybe,
Yeah.
but
Yeah.
we were really blown away by his hospitality, and yeah, no, not hospitality. That's wrong, right? So it was the opposite. No, he was very welcoming, and yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. I think that, like I said, it was so in so many interviews that he just
Mm,
name
yeah,
checked your band, so
yeah,
many.
yeah,
And that's why I remember reading, he was excited. He said, I remember reading an article saying he signed you guys onto Mad Dog Winston Records, which was named after his dog.
yeah.
It was funny in my youth, just seeing
Ah.
him walk the dog. He lives like not far from my aunt. But again, you know, when you see somebody, then you're more likely to read, okay, what are they saying? And he was always citing, like, I'm not gonna lie, like I learned about Allen Ginsberg from him because he would cite Ginsberg. And I remember, you know, and I think that that's so important when
Mm,
other bands talk about what were their influences, what they're reading. You know, Kurt Cobain used to talk about, you know, reading William Burroughs, and I think that's so helpful for kids to kind of discover art that way. So yeah, good on Gavin. I don't think a lot of people realize that
no.
he's kind of helpful
And
in
I
that
remember
sense.
when we were touring England, they also got a lot of bullying in England. It was like he was this misfit everywhere.
Yeah.
Yeah, he got a lot of slack. Yeah,
I think because at that time there was that Britpop
yeah,
versus I think grunge was happening still. And so I think that people
yeah.
thought he was like selling out to that kind of thing. But you know, they make solid. It wasn't something necessarily like you said initially as a fan, but solid. The song, the lyrics are solid because of a lot of the influences, probably.
Mm.
Now, I have to ask you because I've never been able to say it. I can't say your first album's name. I always just call that
No,
album Sudek.
yeah, but the thing is that we it was like a prank. We have never been able to pronunciate it. It was just like, how can we make such a weird title? So every time, because we wanted to prank journalists, so we don't know how to pronunciate it. It's like chits chits chi. Who cares? But that was typical. The guitarist Andreas and me and Johan. We were like siblings. We're not siblings, but we had a very weird sense of humor, and we were also very annoying people. And we had so much attitude, and actually, we didn't have so many fans because we were so much pain in the ass. So people didn't really know how to like us because, yeah, we were sometimes a bit hostile. This fuck off, everyone. It was really
Yeah.
punk attitude. So that was very, very childish, actually, but it was a bit fun in those days when they still had us on TV and stuff, and they were gonna represent us. And each time we were laughing so hard when they were trying to pronounce the title. But it was actually a name of a cat. When we recorded our first album, there was this ragged cat sneaking around in the studio, and we started to call that Chich Chich. So I don't know. It's very, yeah.
How did you guys come about starting Souls?
Me and Andreas were going to the same high school, or what do you say? In beginning, he was this really tall, really dark, emo kind of guy. You know, always standing, smoking John Silver cigarettes
Mhm.
outside.
Looking cool.
Looking really cool, and I was kind of trying to be a little cool, and then he started to give me a cassette tapes. It was like his way of kind of hitting on you a little bit, and I was like, oh, I got his cassette with like Cocteau Twins, I think he gave me,
Yeah, yeah.
and Massey Star or something. And then I'm so happy that we actually maybe we had one date,
Hmm.
and but never, nothing ever happened.
Yeah, yeah,
We never kissed or anything.
yeah.
But I think I had a bit of a crush on him for like a week, and then my cousin from Stockholm came to visit, and then he started to hit on her.
Mhm.
He was
Ouch.
such a womanizer, and was so fucking pissed off. And then, but then, like 6 months later, we got kind of friends again, and then we started our first band together. And then Andreas was playing the drums with two other guys, and then we had a gig, our first gig.
Mhm,
And then Johan, he was a couple of years older, and
mhm.
he watched us play, and then he was like, "Ah, I want. That's a cool guy." Because he didn't really pay attention on me, but so him and Johan started to talk about forming a band, and then they asked me to sing. So in the beginning, it was only the three of us and a little
Mhm.
drum machine,
Wow.
and we were quite poppy because I listened a lot to like Sundays and Massey Star and
Mhm,
bands like that.
mhm,
Uh, it was very jazzy. My mom is a jazz singer, so I still
mhm,
was a bit jazzy by in those days. And then eventually we had a real drummer, and then we kind of become harder and harder, and we started to listen to all these American hardcore bands like Tool and Helmet, and so but we were active for like 6 or 7 years. We played, uh, and yeah, so that's how we started. And we lived in this small town south of Sweden. and then eventually we moved to a bigger city, Gothenburg, and but the thing is that it was all we had this. There was this very awkward man that saw our first gig, and he gave us like a record deal or a publishing deal. So it was all because of him, and he paid all our demos and stuff. It was in those
Wow.
days.
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
And then he asked us, because after maybe 2 or 3 years, we were ready to record a proper album. And then he asked us, what kind of producer would you like to work with? And then Andreas says, we want to work with Steve Albini. And he just picked a name. He almost like said it a bit for fun, you know.
Hmm.
And then Anders, he had this very hard dialect. He was talking like this, very hard to understand. And he actually calls up Steve Albini and hello, can you come to Sweden and record Souls? And he could not really pronounce it. Our
Yeah.
name, Souls. And then Steve Albini said yes. So that was so cool, really. It was and because of Steve Albini, we got a record deal in Sweden, because they were not really interested in us, but they
Yeah.
only signed us because of Steve.
Yeah.
So yeah.
And that's amazing, because that's always been the story I've heard of, like, oh yeah, they didn't have to fly over, to Steve. Like, Steve flew to them to go record them. And I'm like, that's really cool.
So
That's really
cool.
cool. Yeah.
Really cool.
And now, I would be remiss to say, not to bring up that we've, recently lost not just Steve, but we've also lost Andreas, and hopefully they're rocking out together somewhere. I know that must be something that's incredibly difficult to get through. But I think at the same time, there's probably like a little bit of a smirk of like, oh, they kind of went around the same time.
Yeah, it was a very weird year. I
Yeah,
mean, no, first we lost Steve, and then we lost another guy that worked, and then we lost Andreas, and then we lost another guy that helped us a lot in the early beginning.
yeah,
Within 6 months, all of them were gone. So that was very hard. No, it's weird. Someone that it's been such a big part of your life. Even if me and Andreas were not always besties,
yeah,
we had a lot of fights, but not in the last couple of years. But
hmm,
no, it fucking sucks, death. Also, it
yeah,
is
it does.
so boring. It's the first time I've lost someone that's been so close. No, it's so what a waste, I think, of
Yeah,
talent, both him and Steve.
yeah,
And I know Steve's wife, Heather, it must have been such a shock also, because that happened so quick. At least we
yeah,
knew Andreas was sick. He was fighting cancer
yeah.
for like, yeah.
It was very shocking. Um, I think also because, I mean, if you followed Steve and his wife, they were very healthy,
Yeah.
very
Yeah.
healthy people into
Yeah.
health foods and stuff like that. So that was definitely very shocking. What was it like to work with him? And was the second time easier than the first time? Because you kind of had a rhythm, you've worked with him before?
No, it wasn't easier, but also to work with Steve has been
Mhm.
always amazing. I mean,
Yeah,
he was the most, like, again, humble and professional and so nice, friendly. And the first time it was much more focused. You know, when you do your first album, you have played the songs a lot live. So, we knew our songs, and we were in this very weird little space for 2 weeks. So that was very intense, but a lot of fun. But the second album, we went to Chicago, and then we stayed in Steve and Heather's house. So we lived with them, and because that was when he was building the electrical audio. So
Mhm.
that summer they were working on to build that studio. But so we recorded some songs from the second album in his basement where he had that other
Yeah.
studio.
Yeah.
So I think he was in the basement. No, we were playing in the basement, and he was sitting on the second floor. That's where the mixer table
Yeah,
was.
yeah, yeah.
So,
Wow.
and then we were there for like a month or something. But the second album is hard. You have pressure. The songs you hadn't played them live, so we started to really. It was 4 or 5 very long weeks, and Steve could only record with us in the evenings since he was working daytime.
Yeah.
So in the daytime we were trying to write new songs,
Yeah.
and so actually I think Bo Peter, our drummer, amazing drummer on the first and half the second album, he kind of quit when we came back to
Wow.
Sweden. He
Wow.
just had it. I mean, we were so much pain in the ass. Alltså totally 3 fucking monsters, me, Johan and Andreas alltså.
Yeah.
Alltså I would shake us if I'd met myself in that time. Yeah. And then so when we came home, we were not really pleased with
Mhm.
everything. So we found a new drummer, Lars-Erik Grimelund, and then we finished what we started with Steve with another producer in Sweden.
That album, I have to tell you, for me, and I've spoken to you about this with you before, for me was such a game changer. And the reason is, and what's funny is I did a post on my Instagram page about Souls, and in the end I said, "Have you heard of Souls?" And the majority of people are like, hell yeah, we've heard of Souls. And I was like, that's
Mm.
so cool, because,
Oh,
sometimes, I put stuff out there that I think maybe you haven't heard of it. I like to post about bands and like leave a breadcrumb, like, hey, maybe you never heard of it. Discover this band, because music is timeless. You can discover it now. You could discover it, 30 years ago. But for me, it was such this, like you said, you listen to the Sundays, you listen to Mazzy Star, you could hear this like very sweet, God, you have the sweetest, most angelic voice. You do. It's just like the
thank you.
most sweetest voice, but then you just let out this feralness. And I was so drawn to that, because it kind of basically told me you can be this, feminine, sweet, lovely thing, but basically don't piss me off. And I needed that as a young girl, you know, going through life in the early 90s and things like that, in the
It
mid
was tough
90s.
to be a woman in the 90s.
Yeah, it was. So
Mm,
that was so empowering to me,
mm.
of just everything, like, and it was a soundtrack to my life, because I would play it and I would feel strong. I would feel very strong. I'd feel like, and I wouldn't take shit from people, because like, listen to Cecilia. Like, she doesn't take shit from people. I don't need to take shit from you either. You know what I'm but that's like girls backing up girls in a different way.
I'm so happy. This makes my heart bolt. Thank you so much. It's amazing to hear that. Since in the 90s, I think I was so lonely in this guy band, and also between women in the 90s, you, we were always compared with each other, and we competed with each other, and we were bitching each other. So yeah, that's actually something I've been thinking so much about in the 90s, because it was amazing for us. We went to this on these big tours and everything, but it was also it was such a male patriarchal time era, and the music business was so weird and not nice actually.
Yeah.
Uh,
Yeah.
so yeah, but I'm very happy that that I did inspire some others, but me myself, I didn't get it by then.
Yeah.
I don't know what I was doing, fighting to survive something. Yeah.
I definitely, I mean, in that time, there was the little fair concerts were going on, and those were important, and those were really great and nice for women. But I love the Riot Girls. I
Yeah.
love
Yeah.
bands like Hole. I loved bands like Bikini Kill. I love
Mm,
bands like L7 because
mm.
they could get out there and say, "Hey, we could play guitar just as good, just as badass, just
Yeah.
as punk rock." Not taking that shit, and I think that and it seems like such a little thing to, like, try to empower in women of not taking shit, but that's a huge thing of, just knowing, like, hey, to set boundaries, whereas sometimes growing up now, I've heard crazy things, like, I'll talk to my, friends, and my friend will complain, like, her teenage daughter went to a party with one guy, and then he made out with another girl, and he went home with her, and I was like, "Well, was she upset? Was she," and she goes, "No, she just said that that's what they do nowadays." I'm like, "What are you talking about? That's what they do nowadays?" She's like, "Yeah, they just hook up with other people." I'm like, "Back in my day, that the girl, she would have been there would have
Yeah.
been a fight. There would have been a fight, like,
Yes.
that's not you're not gonna
Of course.
disrespect, you know what I'm saying? But
Yeah.
I'm like,
Yeah. Yeah.
that's where 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 are the kids getting it that that's okay? Like, that's not okay.
What I can sense is though is that nowadays maybe this monogamy is not the norm anymore. That they are more like poly and things.
Yeah,
And in one sense, it's quite cool. Also, I mean,
yeah,
I'm not a poly, I can tell you, it's another way of looking on relationship.
yeah,
But so maybe she's not only a doormat. It's more like, I don't know. Yeah, whatever. Also, but it's such a strange time. I must say I work a lot with with kids and with youth, and they're amazing. I think many of the young people growing up now, they're so much more wise. They're so much more smart. Also, they will, yeah, they have fun. I'm very impressed.
Now I get to tell you that my
Yeah.
14-year-old son is a huge fan of yours, but he likes your other band more than Souls. He loves Monkeystrikes.
Yay!
Monkeystrikes is he loves it. Like, he's actually downstairs, and he's with my producer downstairs, and my producer's also my son's math teacher for like 3 years.
Ooh.
And so they're downstairs talking about it. So he's like was actually like playing him some music. It's like, oh, she's playing this is who she's
Oh,
talking to up
that's
there.
so cool. And I promised you to send you a album, and I didn't. I'm so sorry.
That's
I
okay.
But yeah, but that's so. I mean, I don't know how to take it, because yeah, we were kind of a little bit happening in the 90s, but it was
Yeah.
so long time ago now.
It's nice that though there is internet, because over, when you guys came out, well, when the second album came out, it was just kind of the start of the internet. So over the last 30 years, every time I could, I was always trying to find out what's going on with Souls. And it was hard. I remember even mailing Gavin one time saying, "Have you heard? Do you know what's going on with Souls? Like, have you heard? Because maybe he would know." Um, and then when I found, and that's how I like found Monkeystrikes, just a couple years back. And I mean, I just loved it, but it was like so cool to one day my son walked by and just I heard him singing one of your lyrics, and I'm like, "What are you singing?" He's like, "Oh, it's this band Monkeystrikes." He goes, "I found it on your playlist," and I was like, I'm like, so, and but that makes me so happy. Like, just um, it's kind of like a full circle thing, and I was like, "Oh, that's
Yeah,
really
and now
cool."
that music genre is so back again. There are actually, I'm gonna send you. There's some new bands in my town doing totally the indie rock thing again, and
Yeah,
it's so amazing. I really liked it, because the sad thing with Monkey Strike, it was me and the bass guitarist Johan from Souls. We started this band, but we when we released that album, that's when the rock music was so dead. It
yeah,
was 2005. Everybody wanted to listen to The Knife, to this more electronical music and hip hop,
Yeah.
of course. So it was like releasing an album into a black hole.
Yeah.
Nothing happened.
Yeah.
So we had a bad timing with that album, but I'm proud of it.
It's a great album. Whenever I send it to people, they always have they're like, wow, I didn't expect this. I'm like, yeah, it's really good, right? They're like, where did you find this from? I'm like, oh, they're from Sweden, but they used to be that she was in another band, and then I
Yeah.
just give them a bunch of stuff.
But it was Nathan Larson producing it. Nathan Larson is also rock man, married to Nina in Cardigans. Yeah.
Yes, yeah. And you were in a documentary with Nina from Cardigans.
Yes.
And how did that come about, this documentary?
It was another friend of mine, documentary filmer. In the early 2000s, there is this really cool woman called Gudrun, and they started to make this tribute to Dolly things. And I listened to Dolly in the 90s. I mean, our second album cover, Bird, Fisher in Between, I imitate Dolly Parton on the cover. Like it was ironic, we were so ironic. But and so we started to do this Dolly Parton tribute concert with a lot of different musicians and singers. And then she started to film that. So the film is about me and four other, Nina Persson and three other, Lotta Wenglén, and three other, and Gudrun. Yeah, so it's like a portrait of five women in different parts in their lives. But it's hard to be like a subject in a documentary. I didn't really like it.
Really?
I mean, I mean, I'm since when I quit Souls, I started to film myself. I went to documentary film school, and for a while I was doing that. But it's like, no, your private life you want to have to yourself.
Yeah.
I mean, you said you're a bit shy as well. And it's also interesting, but it's a good thing though to have been through that. But it's a nice movie. Yeah.
Yeah. I think I am shy, but I compartmentalize. Like I
Yeah.
just compartmentalize my life, and so like I could still remain super private
Yeah.
and just compartmentalize the things that I want to do. But yeah, I'm super shy. I want to introduce you to someone because I know he's going to take off.
Yeah.
I want to introduce you to my son.
Yeah, finally I want to see him.
Come here to say hi to Cecilia really quick.
Hello.
Hey there. There you are. Finally, I
Hi.
see you. Good to see you.
Good to see you too.
What's up? Do you have your own band? Are you playing as well?
No.
You're
don't
not.
I'm
No?
not in a band.
You're not in a band yet. But
I'm not in a band
you
yet.
should start one in Thailand. You should
And
start.
me and my friend have had ideas of starting a band.
Please just do it. And it's really good if you don't know how to play, then it's more fun. It's very good.
I'll be honest with you. I'm not the greatest at instruments.
But maybe drummer.
Yeah, I could.
You did the
no,
drums okay.
I could do the drums okay for a while. I just haven't played in a while.
Yeah, you should definitely rock out, I think. And there's so many different ways of doing music. You don't always have to be doing it to become like having it as a career, It's such a great thing. But I'm so grateful that you liked my old band Monkeystrikes. It was so much
Yes.
fun to hear. So happy to see you.
Happy to see you as well. I'll give it back to my mom.
Have a good day.
I bought him a guitar. When he wanted a guitar, I bought him a guitar. When he wanted drums, I bought him drums. And then he played for a while, and then he stopped, and my mom's like, you should sell him. I'm like, he'll come back to it. Like, he'll come. I believe he'll come back to it. I just said, leave it around.
But one thing is that I think that's the sad thing, that we think that to be able to do something, you need to be so good. It's like we always this elite thinking instead of thinking, is this fun? oh yeah, it's fun, then I'll do it. And who cares how it sounds like? I mean,
Yeah.
but I've seen it more and more when I get out doing music workshops with kids.
Yeah.
When they're in the high school, they're like, no, I'm not going to work with music, so I don't want to do this workshop. I'm like, so where did all that joy and playfulness go? I mean, everything we do, it needs to become a result. I think, yeah, that's something that makes me sad.
Yeah. I just recently did this post because it was the 35 anniversary of like the Slint album, Spiderland. And I remember saying that I, because I loved music so much, like I always thought I want to play guitar. My dad gave me guitar lessons from this guy that was like, he was like a worldwide winner of John Denver contest, like not lip syncing, like actually playing and sounding like John Denver, but he was from the Philippines. So he's a great guitarist, but I hated learning guitar from him. And it made me so sad because it's like, I love music. I want to play guitar, but I don't want to learn all these like structures. And then I heard Slint and it was like, well, I could do whatever the hell I want. Like,
Yeah.
I don't need to do music theory. I can make whatever sounds. And even though I didn't want to play for people, like I just maybe wanted to do something myself and record it myself, some weird little thing that kind of gave that permission to do that, which was great. So I think that's the great thing about social media today is like you can kind of introduce bands that some people might have forgotten about, and you can hope maybe somebody will listen to that too and go, huh, I don't have to play guitar this way. I could do whatever I want.
Yeah, you just buy a distortion pedal, and then you can just and everything
Yeah.
sounds great.
Right?
No, I've never learned. I don't know music theory. I've never learned how to play, and for many years I only played E minor with a lot of distortion. So, but did you have a band then? I know I asked you thousands of times.
No, I ended up managing a band because at the time
Mm.
that I was going to college, but I was also a manager of a retail store. So there was a band, and he's going to come on, that was like looking for a manager, and somebody said, well, she manages like a retail store, so she could probably manage us. And so I managed this punk band, and I didn't know anything about managing a punk band, and it was more for them to say, we have a manager, go talk to our manager. And it looked like they were a professional band. And somebody'd come by and say, like, hey, do you want to play a gig this day? And I'd be like, yeah. And we just pretended we were really professional. If we like didn't know anything about anything.
It was so nice to hear you in another podcast talk about the music scene in San Diego. So interesting, and that you had this vibe, and all the bands were helping each other, showing up for each other's shows, and
It's amazing. It's amazing, and it's always been for as long as I can remember, it's always been that way. And it's strange because I thought every city was like that.
but
And
actually
it
Gothenburg were a bit like that, where it was because we were all there were bands like Honey is Cool, Broder Daniel, Soundtrack of Our Lives, and we were all kind of just being in this
Mhm,
town.
mhm.
And we were showing up for each other's shows, we were helping each other, finding rehearsal spaces, and stuff. So that was amazing to be able to be a part of that music scene.
Yeah.
That
Do
meant
you
a
think
lot
it's
to
like
us.
that now?
I don't think so, but I have not. I don't have an idea. Actually, I hope it is, but I don't think so. But the Malmö is quite interesting where I live now. There is this amazing festival where they where like young new bands play, and then there is this industrial area where a lot of car wash garages, and then the bands play in the car wash thing.
Oh, wow.
So at the same time, so there is this huge street, and then it may be like 100 bands play at the same time.
That's
It's
so
so
cool.
crazy, and I know you would love it, and it's all
That's so
genres.
cool.
It's like
Oh,
punk,
wow.
hardcore, jazz. Yeah, it's really not so much jazz, to be honest, more punk, but
Yeah. But I know that
techno
Sweden
and
has a
yeah,
huge music scene
yeah.
that I mean, they devour music. My friends in Las Vegas, they play in Sweden, and they just said that the crowds are like wonderful. James, his wife is from Sweden, and her sister is in a great band called Browsing Collection, which is like
I have to
punk.
check it
And
out.
so check it out. Yeah, it's really
Mhm.
cool. But it just seems like Sweden has always been like pro music. What was that kind of like growing up? You know, the music scene. Did you get a lot of the big bands? Did they come to Sweden a lot?
Not so much, but since where I live is close to Denmark, so big bands often go to Copenhagen and to
Yeah,
like Christiania and stuff.
yeah.
So that was really good for us. Big bands they do come. We're gonna see Billie Eilish soon. Me and my kids.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, but I think in historically Sweden has been this social welfare land, and they
Mhm,
have had. It's been very easy to start a band. There's a lot of help, study circles, and you know you. But sadly now, Sweden have imitated America so much,
mhm,
so we have kind of dismantled our whole social welfare system. It's very capitalistic, and in these days they're shutting down all. We have something called kulturskolan, cultural school, where so all kids should be able to learn an instrument. But now they're cutting down on everything. So it's dark times. But we have a tradition, yes, of supporting musicians. I'm not gonna be sit here and be whiny. There's so many other things we could
yeah,
whine about,
yeah.
but
There's so many great bands that come out of Sweden, though. Like, I love Teddy Bears.
yeah,
Um, Teddy Bears is a great band. I also know that you're into Tibetan yoga,
yeah.
and I'm not very religious, but I love the philosophies of Tibetan Buddhism. And so, like, I followed a lot, and when I learned that you did that, I'm like, "Oh, that's really cool. I should try Tibetan yoga. Like, I've never tried that. Maybe I should watch her videos and try it sometime." How did you get into that?
Oh, I've always been really interested in spirituality, but I don't like the word really.
Yeah,
So, but in the
same.
early 2000, I met this Tibetan Lama. He's my age and very modern in a way, and he's really cool. And he developed Tibetan sword yoga, wisdom sword yoga. I can show you my sword.
So
Wait.
cool.
Yeah, here it is, my wooden sword.
That's
And what I
cool.
like with that philosophy is that this part of Tibetan Buddhism is it's very it's like you use your negativity and transform it
Mhm,
to wisdom. So
mhm,
you use the anger, you use the sadness, jealousy, you use all this instead of trying to bypass it. Like
mhm.
in other traditions, it's more like you have to be very nice and sit and meditate. That's not really me.
Yeah.
My undiagnosed ADHD. So, and it's so empowering also because the sword is a symbol of your inner power and your inner wisdom, and it helps you to cut off your ego in a way, to cut away the thoughts.
Yeah.
uh, and you feel a bit like you're in Kill Bill.
Yeah.
So I've done it a bit, sometimes periods it's been very intense. I had
Yeah.
a little fanatic period also, and
Mhm.
then I had to distance myself from it totally,
Yeah.
because it is my parents were doing TM, transcendental meditation. So I kind of grew up in this little sect thing. So I had a lot of issues with that, actually, to have a
Mhm.
guru.
Yeah.
So and I'm a really really not liking the sectarism that can, yeah. But now I think I've found a balance, because
Yeah.
you can never put your hands in someone else's, your soul in somebody else's hands. I mean, eventually you have to die on yourself, you know? There will be no one there.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
you really need to build the connection and to trust yourself.
Yeah.
It's so important. So yeah, now I'm teaching this and another technique, and I'm trying to not be so holy about it.
Mhm.
You know, yeah.
Yeah. I
Mm.
think that it's such a good thing, um, because it's like it's not saying, it's not trying to say, okay, I'm gonna hide this or block this. It's like moving through. My son asked me something last night. We were just sitting around talking, and he said, "What's the worst thing that ever happened to you in life?" And I was like thinking about it, and I was thinking about it, and I said, I can't really think of anything. He's like, "Well, something bad must have happened." I'm like, "Well, yeah, sure, bad things happen, but in every bad thing that happened, there was some lesson that I learned from it, and I walked away from it having some lessons. So when I look back at it, I never really think of it. Was it really bad? It was difficult maybe to work through, but I'm here. So
Yeah,
I look at it that way, like I'm here now. So like I worked through it. And I kind of say that to a lot of people that are like, I'm going through some stuff. I'm like, but you're still here and you're still going through it. So good job, like really
yeah,
good job. So I was really interested. I'm going to talk to you outside of this more about that because I thought that was really cool. And I want a sword.
yeah, yeah.
I totally want a
It's so
sword.
much fun. I don't know how many in Thailand is doing it, but I can check it up for you if you can
There's
find a
a
teacher.
there's got to be, because just down the unfortunately there was this the earthquake in Myanmar recently, and
Oh yeah,
where they had the building collapse here in Thailand, across the street from there is this big giant Tibetan store with all sorts of cool things, and they may have a sword.
yeah. But I've also studied shamanism for a while now, and
That's so cool.
I use it. I have a new project called Fullmånen Från Hell in Swedish, Fullmånen Från Helvetet, and I sing in Swedish now. And I have 2 cello players, and we are doing a tour now. But it's really cool because for me it's so important to connect with the earth and to connect with the animals and to connect with, especially now in these days, environmental crisis and
Hmm.
stuff. But it's cool, and now I use it kind of in my performance. I made this audiovisual concert with another artist. She makes amazing things, films. Yeah, I really like to explore, but it's not so good career wise because I've always done so much different kinds of music. Because I'm curious. I don't want to do the
Yeah, yeah,
same thing all over again.
yeah.
Mm.
And I think that's kind of amazing. I think that you're an artist, in many different mediums. And I hope that you always keep making music because I will always keep buying it. Um,
Yay! I'm sorry, I sing in Swedish though. I sing in
that's okay.
Swedish now, but yeah, thank you so much. It's so nice to have this meeting with you, and I think also it's so important because I feel that you also are a community person.
Yeah,
This podcast you do, and
yeah.
how you connect people, and that's what we need right now.
Well, when I started it, it was really because I was wondering, how do kids, because I'm with kids all the time and I hear, how do they get music? And then I was like talking to my friends and I thought, how do kids get music today? Because how we got music was so different, because we didn't have the internet, we didn't have all that. Sometimes we just hear something on a radio and you'd have to wait until it cycled again. And and I don't know if I'm probably going to be the same in Sweden, but growing up in the States, we always had a stereo someplace and we had a cassette in it and we press record pause,
Yeah,
and it would
that's
always
how
be
we did
record pause. And same in Sweden then.
it. Yeah.
And then when the song came on, you jump across the room to unpause it, to record it, and hope he didn't talk over the end.
Yeah.
But that's how we got music, and we made mixtapes this way and handed it to a friend. And I thought, so like I wanted to talk to people, like how did people get music, and how do people get music nowadays? And then I didn't expect the podcast to grow in the way that it did. It's just took off, and then all of a sudden we had like 10,000 people. I was like, what? That's so crazy. And, we didn't have like a bunch of superstars on. There was just people talking about their love of music. And I thought, that's what this is. That's what Sign Our Cupcake is. People talking about music. And even me, I had a friend that he does a radio show every week, and he puts all these songs, and I have to go afterwards and collect all these songs because I'd never heard of them before. But the whole week I'm excited. I'm listening to these songs I never heard of, and I'm excited. And I love that about music. And that's what I hope that Sign Our Cupcake can do, is kind of put breadcrumbs out there for people to discover music. And I hope that people go and listen to Souls, and I hope that they listen to Monkeystrikes. I hope they listen to everything that you do, because everything you do has been absolutely fantastic. I would recommend a lot of people to start. If you want, some people need to hear something familiar, start with Monkeystrikes' Killing Moon. That that's a great cover.
Thank you.
And if you like that, then you could go into it from that way, and then go discover it different ways. Like I said, you've been such a huge part of my life. And you've meant so much without you knowing it. And 2 years later, be able to connect, is like such an awesome thing. And I'm just so appreciative of you coming on here.
I'm deeply honored, Lisa. Thank you so much. I mean, it's amazing to hear that. Thank you.
You have a daughter?
Yeah, we have 2 daughters.
And how do they feel about mom and what mom used to do?
Now they're starting to get a more interest. They're 15 and 12 now. And both of them, they're so different, but they listen. They are really music nerds, both of them.
Yeah.
But I haven't really been pushing it in their face. But but now, since now I'm touring more, and again, I've had like 7 years break. So now I think they maybe start to realize more. But I mean, isn't it always like that with your parents? And I don't know. I don't want to force, but they both of them, they play the piano and stuff. They haven't really started with the guitar yet, but the guitar is tricky. It's hard to. That's why you need to. But for many years, I worked with something called Pop Colo. It's like girl camps, rock camps for girls. They don't say girls anymore. You shouldn't say girl. But but actually, my youngest, next year, I want her to, and that's a little music camp where you play, you form bands and stuff. So I look forward to it. But they don't necessarily need to go into music business. Yeah, I don't think I don't know if they think I'm cool. I have one song called The Dick Kuken in Swedish. And actually, for a while, my oldest, she had a friend, and they were very religious, and their mom they didn't want my daughter to play with their daughter, since of that I'm like this antichrist person. I don't know, but maybe I think I'm a little bit cool. They laugh. I think, I don't know.
That's really.
You don't have to think your mom is cool when you're 15. It's okay to not.
I think they secretly do, though. Because I see my kids' friends, they all actually are really like, because they like to hang out here, and I hear them talking about their moms, and they all love their moms. They're like, they love their moms. They're like really sweet, and they are aware sometimes that they drive their moms crazy, because I'm like, they're like, yeah, I drive my mom crazy. I'm like, well, why do you? They're like, I don't know, I don't want to. So it's really sweet. Well, thank you so much for coming on here and talking to me. And like I said, this is such a thrill for me, because you've meant so much to me, and your music has meant so much to me for so long. And you don't know how much I love that my son loves it now. Like, that's really cool to me, of like, that's something that we could share. And it's something that he won't turn off when it comes on the car. He turns it up. So I love that. I love that.
The best gift ever. Thank you for this, Lisa. And I we did, yeah, there's so much other things we could talk about, but yeah, we forgot to say that I quit the band 97. I after the US tour I quit. But
Really?
yeah, that's what
I did not know
happened.
that.
Yeah, because it was so intense. But no, but that's another story. Maybe we'll talk again another
Let's
time.
talk again. Let's
Yeah.
do it again. I would love to. I'd love to hear more
Yeah.
stories.
Just a question. Did you write with Andreas? Did you
No.
have contact with him? No, because he
No.
was really active on the internets before he, yeah. No, we were starting to really drift apart during that tour. And I
Yeah.
remember when Jesus Lizard came on, we were so happy because we
Yeah.
really, really think they were cool. And
Yeah.
David Yo and all of them, so great people, so
Yeah.
insanely funnily insane. But
You know what's so funny about
mm,
that I remember thinking though, Jesus Lizard is actually one of the bands I've seen live most
yeah.
because I think that they are a better band live than they are like I don't think that
I
recording
totally
them
agree. Yeah.
can capture.
Yeah.
And I remember the first time that I took my very large friend because I was very skinny at the time, very tiny. And so I took my very large friend and we went and David Yao jumped off the stage and he's tinier than me and
Yeah.
he draped himself over my shoulder and his legs are still on the stage, but he's draped over my shoulder and he just sang a whole song over my shoulder. And this was like my first Jesus Lizard concert. And I was like, do I stay here? Like, do I push him off? Is he going to get off? Like, and it was just bizarre to me. Like, I didn't know what to do. And then he went back on the stage. He pulled down his pants and he humped the speaker, you know, and I was like, that's so crazy. So when I heard that, you know, they were going to open for Bush, and I'm like, okay, you're going to have a lot of teenage girls and their mothers that are going to be there for Gavin.
I know.
And if David comes out, I don't know what's going to happen. Like, I can't even imagine what's going to happen. He's going to.
It was chaos. But what was so interesting was that they came on and we were like, oh, finally, this cool band, and they have done so many concerts. They're like they were veterans already by then, in a way.
Yeah.
But then they were on the tour for 2 weeks, and by the end of those 2 weeks, they were like ghosts of themselves. They were so psychologically stressed out by this arena thing. And
Yeah.
they were really having a downfall also after that tour. And that's when I realized how hard it is. This arena thing,
Hmm.
it's so weird, you just go from big arena to big arena. You don't meet people really.
Yeah.
It's such a weird life.
Yeah.
You're so alone in a way, because we had a little tour when we did normal clubs. That was
Hmm.
amazing.
Yeah.
You meet people, you hang
Yeah.
out,
Yeah.
you go out to the local record store, but this arena thing is so draining. It's like, nah. So we were really fighting also on the plane home,
Yeah.
because the other guys, they were heavy drinkers, and I had to stay sober on the tour. Since I was singing every day,
Yeah.
I couldn't
Yeah.
keep up. So
Yeah.
I decided not to drink so much, at least.
Yeah.
And then and then when we got home, I decided to quit, because I felt either I continue and I will become either an alcoholic or mentally totally fucked up. Uh,
Yeah.
so I just I had to do it for the sake of my soul, my sanity, and that was
Yeah.
so hard also to call Gavin and say that. Uh,
Yeah.
he had invested so much in us, and he was also got really disappointed. I think I think he was on Hawaii when I called him. He was like lying in a hammock on Hawaii, and I was like, "I'm sorry, I need to quit." He's like, "But what do you want? do you want to sing with Tricky? I can get you a trick, because I said something. I
Yeah.
want to do other kind of music. I can give
Yeah.
you Massive Attack, blah blah blah. I'm like, nah. I just wanted to run away from the whole thing, and then that's when I started to do film. But it's a long story though. But when even Jesus Lizard were totally lost,
Yeah.
then I realized this. It's not strange that I feel like this. Yeah.
I think that a lot of people think that touring is quite glamorous and it's brutal. And that's even with somebody calling to wake you up. That's somebody doing all that stuff for you and you just have to show up. But it's like, okay, especially if it's like on a tour where you're going like on South American, it's like every day it's like, okay, get up at this time, do this. And it was like, people were like, oh, how did you like South America? You went to Chile, you went to Peru, you went to all these places. I'm like, saw nothing.
Yeah.
Because
You
it's
see
just like
nothing.
quick schedule, didn't get to meet anybody.
No, doing smaller clubs, that's fun. Doing normal venues, that's totally amazing.
So much fun.
But not arena things. And that's why
Yeah.
you see many people go under drugs or whatever, because it's weird. I really enjoy Robbie Williams though. Did you see his documentary?
I didn't see his documentary, but I heard a lot of great clips of him talking about stuff.
It's he. If talking on the arena kind of backside, but but I'm very happy for the experience, and that otherwise you would never have heard us,
right?
Yes, and
yeah,
and but I really felt so lonely in those years, and it would be lovely to do it again, but with girlfriends,
yeah.
Yeah.
I will never forget, and I've carried it with me. I could still see it in my head because there wasn't, camera phones back then. We didn't have smartphone. So it was just a mental picture. I remember what you were wearing. You were in all black, and you were there, this, and I remember the same reaction. The crowd had the same reaction where you came on all sweet and I thought, oh, this is nice. And then let out that feral growl, and then all of a sudden you could see now the guys are like, yeah, into it. And it's like, see, you got them now, and then you got the girls, and it was so great. But I just remember when I had my arms up and I could see your eyes read that it said souls, and then I could just see your smile, and it was so big and it was so huge. And I felt so good because I thought, okay, she knows that we came here we came for her. Like that's cool. That's all I needed. And I never thought I'd see you again in my life, let alone
I'm
talk to you or
up.
become friends. So
No, that's a nice end of the conversation, and now we fall back again for the souls. So beautiful. I really liked that San Diego show. I remember how much fun it was. It was
it's
really
one of my
cool
only
crowd.
big shows.
Yeah,
It was on the harbor.
Yeah, it was so much fun. Yeah, that's when I saw this pelican. They were flying while we were playing. I'm like, what the fuck? I've never seen flamingo. It was flamingos and pelicans. Yeah.
Yeah.
It was very.
I don't usually go, like, there's only, like, in San Diego, there was, like, 2 clubs I went to because they're, like, 250 capacity. I could deal with that. I know where all the exits are. I know the hiding places. I usually don't go out, but like I said, for that particular thing, I thought I may never have a chance to see them. They're all the way from Sweden, so I'm going to go. And I really didn't want to, because I really did not want to be around a bunch of, like, screaming for Gavin type crowds. But the other reason I did want to go see Bush show was that Dave Parsons used to be in a band called Transvision Vamp, which I liked.
Yeah, great band.
And so that was kind of exciting to see that. And Nigel Pulsford was just like a super nice guy. Like everybody that's ever met him just said Nigel was like the nicest guy in the world.
Yeah.
So it's like you kind of felt like, oh, let's support these.
All of them were so nice. Did you interview Gavin yet?
No, not at all.
You should.
Do you know what? Like a lot of people might claim that they heard Pixies from Kurt, because Kurt was talking about Pixies a lot. I'm like, I learned of Pixies from I learned of Pixies from Gavin. Like Gavin used to cite all these different things, and I had a lot of male friends that are like, Gavin, whatever.
Yeah.
People couldn't get past of how he looked back then, right?
Yeah, no.
So people just like whatever, but it was like, so I remember thinking, I was like, man, I got into Pixies so much because of him. I got into Jesus Lizard because of him. I got into Souls because of him. But that's what happened.
I think he would be happy to talk to you. But you know, I named my dog Pixie, so I'm also a
Oh,
great fan.
I love them so much. And I know that you love music.
Yeah, I do. But I'm not as nerdy as you are, actually. But you're amazing. I love your nerdery.
I love it. I love it.
And you know, as musicians, we need fans also. We need people that are devoted to be able to continue, because it's not very easy to go with your dream. Yeah. So thank you, Lisa. It means so much. Thank you so
Thank
much.
you. I'm glad that there's like a reciprocal thing, because it's like
Yeah.
you do so much for us. So thank
Yeah.
you.
Yay, thank you. Hi.